First strike. The vastness of deep space stretched before Captain Sarah Chen as she stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force vessel Hyperion. Their mission was routine: patrol the outer colonies, show the flag, and remind everyone that Earth was keeping the peace. 20 years of human expansion into space had been remarkably peaceful. No aliens, no wars, just the occasional pirate or separatist to deal with. That peace was about to be shattered. "Captain, we're picking up an anomalous reading at bearing 047 Mark 12. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his sensor station. "Whatever it is, it's big, and it's crystalline." Sarah frowned. "Crystalline? Show me." The main view screen shifted to show a massive vessel that seemed to be made entirely of translucent geometric shades. It sparkled in the starlight like a diamond sculpture, but there was something unsettling about its perfect symmetry. The crystalline ship hung motionless in space, seeming to study the Hyperion with cold calculation. Sarah had served in the EDF for 15 years, and something about this situation made her neck hairs stand on end. "Open a channel, all frequencies," she ordered. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Hyperion. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic contact." Silence answered them. The crystal ship's surface began to pulse with internal light, patterns racing across its geometric facets like electronic circuits. "Energy spike," Rodriguez shouted. "There." The world exploded into chaos. A beam of coherent light, bright as a solar flare, lanced out from the alien vessel. Sarah's training kicked in before her conscious mind could react. Evasive maneuvers. Battle stations. The Hyperion's engines roared as the ship twisted away, the alien beam missing them by meters. The near miss still overwhelmed their sensors, leaving ghostly afterimages on every screen. "Return fire, all batteries," Sarah commanded, gripping her chair as the ship executed another hard turn. "And get me a damage assessment on that weapon." The Hyperion's railguns opened up, sending hypersonic projectiles at the crystal ship. Upon impact, the rounds seemed to pass through the crystalline hull like it was made of water, the material flowing back into place with barely a scratch. Conventional weapons having minimal effect, Weapons Officer Park reported, his fingers dancing across his console, trying to modulate our phase cannons to match their hull frequency. Another blast from the alien vessel caught them off guard. This time the beam clipped their port side, and Sarah felt the deck shudder beneath her feet. Direct hit. Hull breach on Deck C. Lieutenant Commander Hayes called out from engineering. "The material. Captain, it's not just damaging us. It's trying to interface with our systems." Sarah's mind raced. This was beyond first contact protocols. Beyond anything they'd trained for. "Elaborate." Hayes. The energy beam carried some kind of crystalline matrix. It's growing inside the breach, trying to integrate with our power systems. I've never seen anything like it. A plan began to form in Sarah's mind. If the alien technology was trying to interface with their systems, perhaps they could turn that against them. "Hayes, can you isolate a sample of that crystal growth?" "Already working on it, Captain. We've got containment fields around the affected area." The crystal ship fired again, but this time they were ready. The Hyperion's recently upgraded shields deflected most of the blast, though the strain made the power grid fluctuate dangerously. "Shields at 47% and falling," Rodriguez reported. "We can't take many more hits like that." Sarah made her decision. Plot an emergency jump to the Ganymede defense station. But first, Hayes, prepare to energize the containment field around that crystal sample with everything we've got. Park, on my mark, hit their primary weapon array with a full spread of torpedoes. "Captain," Hayes cut in. "Something weird is happening with the crystal sample. It's responding to our presence, almost like it's aware." "Explain." "The growth patterns, they shift whenever anyone gets near it, and the computer's detecting low-level quantum fluctuations that sync up with our neural patterns. It's almost like..." The alien vessel fired again, But this time something was different. Sarah felt a strange resonance in her mind, like a bell being struck. Around her, other crew members shook their heads as if to clear them. Did everyone else feel that? She asked. Nods all around. The crystal ship's attack had somehow created a momentary psychic connection. And in that moment, Sarah understood. The aliens hadn't expected this. Their weapons were meant to interface with their crystalline technology, not human minds. Hayes, energize that containment field now. Park. Fire torpedoes. The Hyperion's torpedoes streaked out, detonating against the alien ship's weapon array just as Hayes pumped maximum power through the captured crystal sample. The combination created a feedback loop that made the alien vessel's surface ripple like disturbed water. Jump drive spooling up. Navigation reported. Ready in 30 seconds. The crystal ship was already recovering, its surface restructuring itself. But they had what they came for, a piece of the aliens' own technology, one that seemed to respond to human consciousness in ways its creators never intended. Jump, Sarah ordered. Space twisted around them as the Hyperion made its faster-than-light leap to safety. As the stars blurred into streaks, Sarah stared at the preliminary data from the crystal sample. Humanity had just stumbled into something bigger than first contact. They'd discovered a technology that could change everything, not because of its advanced nature, but because of humanity's unique ability to interface with it. The real question was, what would the aliens do when they realized their weapon had just become humanity's greatest advantage? The hidden potential. Dr. Maya Patel hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she couldn't tear herself away from the quantum resonance readings. The crystalline sample from the Hyperion sat suspended in a magnetic containment field, casting prismatic shadows across her laboratory at the Ganymede Research Station. Run the neural interface scan again, she told her eye assistant. Focus on the delta wave frequencies this time. The crystal pulsed with internal light as the scan began. Maya had been studying it for 3 weeks since the Hyperion's return, and each day brought new revelations. The artifact wasn't just advanced technology. It was something approaching consciousness itself. Dr. Patel. She turned to find Captain Chen standing in the doorway. The captain had been stationed at Ganymede to assist with the research, given her first-hand experience with the technology. Captain, you're just in time, Maya said, gesturing to the readings. Watch this. She placed her hand near the containment field. The crystal's internal light patterns shifted, following her movement. But more than that, Maya felt the now familiar resonance in her mind, like hearing a distant song. It's not just responding to physical proximity, Maya explained. It's reaching out, trying to connect. The quantum structure of these crystals somehow resonates with human consciousness. But here's the fascinating part. According to these readings, it was never designed to do this. Sarah moved closer, watching the crystal react to her presence as well. What do you mean? The base architecture suggests it was engineered for pure computational processes. The aliens, we're calling them the Crystalline Collective based on their ship design. They use it as essentially very advanced computers. But they've completely missed its true potential. Maya pulled up a holographic display showing neural patterns alongside the crystal's quantum fluctuations. Human brains operate on quantum principles we're only beginning to understand. Somehow, these crystals can naturally interface with those processes. It's like, imagine giving a violin to someone who's only ever used it as a percussion instrument. They're missing the music it could make. And we can hear the music, Sarah asked. Better than that. We can play it. Maya gestured to another containment unit where a smaller crystal sample was connected to a neural interface helmet. We've been running tests with volunteers. The crystal doesn't just respond to human consciousness, it amplifies it. Enhances cognitive processing, reaction time, even enables a form of technological telepathy between users. Sarah frowned. Is it safe? Surprisingly, yes. The interface is completely natural, like the crystal was made for human minds, which makes no sense given its alien origin. Unless what? Maya hesitated. This is just a theory, but what if we're not the first? What if other species discovered this technology before, tried to harness it, but could never fully connect with it? So they turned it into crude computational systems instead, never realizing its true purpose. A senior military officer chose that moment to enter the lab. Admiral Victor Torres, the head of Project Nexus. His weathered face was grim. "Doctor, Captain, we've just received word from our deep space monitoring stations. The crystalline collective is coming back. Multiple ships, bigger than the first one. They'll reach our outer colonies within 2 months." Maya and Sarah exchanged looks. 2 months to understand and harness a technology that defied conventional physics. "Admiral," Maya said, "I have a proposal, but it's going to sound crazy. After what I've seen in these reports, Doctor, I'm open to crazy." Maya walked to a massive schematic displayed on the lab's main screen. It showed the preliminary design for a new class of ship, one that integrated the crystal technology directly into its structure. "We don't just incorporate their technology into our ships," she explained. "We build ships around it. Create vessels that are extensions of human consciousness, crewed by pilots mentally linked to the crystal matrix. The collective thinks they're coming back to eliminate a primitive species that stole their tech. Instead, they'll find us using it in ways they never imagined possible." Admiral Torres studied the schematics. "How fast can you have a prototype ready? The real question is, how fast can we find the right crew? This technology, it requires a special kind of mind, someone who can maintain their identity while opening themselves to something vastly larger. Someone who can face the unknown and not just survive it, but thrive in it." Sarah stepped forward. "I volunteer." Maya wasn't surprised. She'd seen the captain's neural scan results. Her mind was exceptionally compatible with the crystal interface. "If we do this," Maya cautioned, "there's no going back. We'll be transforming not just our technology, but ourselves. The human race will become something new." "The collective started this fight," Sarah said, her voice firm. "But we're going to end it, not through brute force, but by proving we're worthy of this gift they never truly understood." Admiral Torres nodded slowly. "Do it. I'll have every resource you need within 24 hours. But remember, we're not just building a weapon. From what you've described, we're building the next step in human evolution." Maya turned back to the crystal, watching it pulse in harmony with their presence. Humanity had spent centuries looking to the stars, wondering if we were alone, if we were special. Now they had their answer, written in crystal and quantum fire. They weren't just special, they were essential. The next stage in consciousness itself was waiting for minds that could truly comprehend it. The only question was whether they could realize that potential before the collective arrived to reclaim what they had never truly possessed. Scientists on Earth study the captured crystal, discovering it's a form of conscious technology that can amplify human cognitive abilities. They realize the aliens, known as the Crystalline Collective, had no idea humans could interface with their tech. The military begins Project Nexus to develop human crystal hybrid ships. Evolution's edge. The EDF Prometheus hung in space above Ganymede, its crystalline hybrid hull catching Jupiter's light in ways that made it seem almost alive. In many ways it was. Sarah Chen stood in what would traditionally be called a bridge, but now resembled something between a meditation chamber and a neural interface hub. "Final systems check," she announced to her crew of 5, each seated in their own interface pods. "Remember your training. Don't fight the crystal matrix. Let it become part of your consciousness." Sarah closed her eyes and opened her mind to the ship. The sensation never ceased to amaze her, like expanding into something vast yet intimate. The Prometheus wasn't just responding to their commands, it was extending their will into physical space. Dr. Maya Patel's voice came through the communication system from Ganymede Control. "All neural interface patterns are stable. Crystal matrix resonance at optimal levels. Ready for full power test when you are, Captain." Sarah took a deep breath. "Initiating full power sequence." The difference between the Prometheus and traditional ships became immediately apparent. Instead of pressing buttons or giving verbal commands, Sarah simply thought about what she wanted the ship to do. The crystalline technology responded instantly, transforming the hull's configuration to create the most efficient engine geometry possible. Lieutenant Jessica Wong, her navigation officer, gasped in her pod. "Captain, the level of control. It's incredible. I can feel every gravitational fluctuation, every magnetic eddy in space." "Stay focused," Sarah reminded her. "We're not just testing the ship's capabilities. We're proving that humans can handle this level of neural integration." They had spent weeks preparing for this moment. The Prometheus represented humanity's greatest technological leap, a ship that was part crystal, part traditional technology, and part human consciousness. Its hull could reconfigure itself instantly, its weapons could adapt to any threat, and its defensive systems could react at the speed of thought. "Beginning maneuver sequence," Sarah announced. The Prometheus moved with impossible grace, executing turns that would tear a conventional ship apart. The crystal technology didn't just allow them to ignore certain laws of physics. It let them work with higher laws they were only beginning to understand. All parameters exceeding projected values by 300%, Maya reported excitedly. "The crystal matrix is actually learning from your neural patterns, becoming more efficient with each maneuver." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Then the alarm sounded. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rivera called from his tactical position. 7. No, 12 crystalline ships just appeared at the edge of the system. Sarah's mind merged deeper with the Prometheus, instantly accessing sensor data that would take minutes to process through conventional means. The collective had arrived early and in force. Their ships were larger than the first one they'd encountered, their crystalline structures more complex. "This is Admiral Torres to all stations," the command channel crackled. "The Prometheus is not cleared for combat. Return to dock immediately." Sarah studied the tactical display in her mind. The collective ships were advancing in a pattern that would cut off their retreat to Ganymede. More importantly, she could sense something about their crystal signatures, a rigidity, a lack of the fluid grace that the Prometheus had achieved. "Admiral," she said, "request permission to engage. We need to know if our theories about their limitations are correct." A pause. "You have exactly 5 minutes, Captain. Do not, I repeat, do not let them capture that ship." Sarah reached out to her crew through the crystal matrix, feeling their acknowledgement, their readiness. "Take us in, combat speed. But we're doing this our way." The Prometheus accelerated toward the alien fleet, its hull shifting and flowing like liquid metal. The collective ships responded predictably, forming a firing line with their energy weapons charged. "They're expecting us to fight like they do," Sarah told her crew. "Let's show them what human intuition can do with their technology." The alien ships fired in unison, their energy beams lancing out across space. But the Prometheus moved like a dancer, its form changing moment by moment. Where a conventional shield would have tried to block the attacks, their hull simply redirected the energy, absorbing and channeling it through the crystal matrix. "Weapons solution?" Sarah asked. "Ready," Rivera confirmed. "But Captain, I have an idea. The crystal matrix, it's showing me possibilities." "Do it." Rivera's consciousness merged with the weapons systems, but instead of firing conventional weapons, he used the crystal technology to create a quantum resonance field. The field matched the frequency of the collective ship's hulls, then shifted slightly out of phase. The effect was devastating. The rigid computational way the collective used their crystal technology couldn't adapt fast enough. Their ship's hulls began to vibrate, their perfect geometrical patterns distorting. "They're pulling back," Wong reported. "Their crystal matrices are destabilizing. They can't maintain formation." The collective ships retreated, their movements suddenly clumsy compared to the Prometheus's fluid grace. Sarah could almost feel their confusion, their inability to understand how their technology was being used against them. "Prometheus, return to base immediately," Torres ordered. Well done, Captain. I think we've just proven our theory about human compatibility with the crystal tech. As they turned back toward Ganymede, Sarah processed what they'd learned. The collective had mastered space travel and incredible technology, but they were trapped by their own rigid thinking. They saw the crystal matrix as a tool to be controlled, not a partnership to be developed. But there was something else, something she had sensed during the brief engagement. The crystal technology itself seemed more alive when interfaced with human consciousness, as if it had been waiting for minds that could help it evolve. Dr. Patel, she called as they approached the dock. I need you to analyze our sensor logs. Focus on the quantum signature of our crystal matrix compared to theirs. I think we're not just using this technology better than they do. I think we're awakening something that was dormant inside it. Already on it, Maya replied. And Sarah, the preliminary results suggest you're right. We're not just evolving ourselves through this technology. We're helping it evolve too. Sarah looked out at Jupiter's massive form, thinking about the battles to come. The collective would return with larger forces, determined to reclaim what they saw as their sole domain. But they didn't understand what they were really fighting for. Not just control of a technology, but the next step in conscious evolution itself. And humanity, for all its flaws and limitations, had somehow proven to be the key to that evolution. The first hybrid ship, the EDF Prometheus, demonstrates unprecedented capabilities as its human crew learns to mentally interface with the crystal tech. Meanwhile, the crystalline collective returns in force, believing humans to be an existential threat to their dominion over conscious technology. Breaking point. 50 ships hung in formation around Jupiter's orbit, their crystalline hulls pulsing with internal light. Each vessel represented humanity's rapid evolution in crystal hybrid technology. No two exactly alike, as each crew's unique consciousness had helped shape their ship's development. The Prometheus led the fleet, its form now more organic than geometric, a testament to 6 weeks of continuous advancement. The collective's main fleet has just emerged from quantum space. Lieutenant Wong reported. Her consciousness merged with the Prometheus' sensors. 117 vessels, including 3 we've never seen before. They're massive. Sarah absorbed the tactical data through her neural link. The alien ships were arranged in perfect geometric patterns, their crystalline structures rigid and uniform. But there was something different about their energy signatures this time. They've modified their crystal matrices, Dr. Maya Patel observed from her new station on the bridge. She had insisted on being present for the confrontation, believing her direct analysis would be crucial. They're trying to copy our advancement, but they're doing it wrong. They're forcing the crystals to comply rather than working with them. The main communication channel activated, carrying a transmission from the Lid collective vessel. The message came not in words, but in pure crystalline resonance, translated through their neural interfaces. You have corrupted our sacred technology. You have induced chaos into perfect order. This ends now. Sarah broadcast her response on the same frequency. You never understood what you had. The crystal matrix isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to evolve, to grow, to dream. Impossible. The crystals are tools, nothing more. Your species' primitive consciousness has diluted itself. Captain, Maya interrupted, her eyes wide as she studied her readings. They're modifications. They're putting incredible strain on their crystal matrices. If they try to force too much power through them. A brilliant flash lit up space as one of the smaller collective ships suddenly shattered, its crystal structure collapsing under the pressure of its forced evolution. Others began showing signs of stress, their perfect geometries developing fracture patterns. All ships, defensive formation Delta, Sarah commanded through the fleet's shared consciousness. But do not fire unless fired upon. Let them see what they're doing to themselves. The human fleet moved as one organism, their ships flowing into protective positions. Through their enhanced crystal matrices, Sarah could feel the collective concern of her crews, not just for their own safety, but for the damage the collective was doing to the very technology they claimed to revere. The first attack came without warning. The three massive collective ships fired in unison, their weapons amplified by their stressed crystal matrices. The energy beams were powerful enough to tear through conventional defenses like paper. But the human fleet didn't use conventional defenses. Now, Sarah commanded, "Show them what true synthesis looks like." Every human ship's crystal matrix activated in perfect harmony, their crew's consciousnesses linking not just with their own vessels but with each other. The defensive pattern they created wasn't just a formation, it was a vast, interconnected web of crystalline consciousness. The collective's attack hit this web and transformed. The energy was absorbed, channeled, and redirected through the entire human fleet. Their hulls glowed with absorbed power, the crystal matrices singing with contained energy. "My God," Maya whispered, "the crystals, they're not just responding to us anymore. They're reaching out, evolving on their own." She was right. Sarah could feel it through her neural link. The crystal technology wasn't just accepting human guidance, it was actively participating, contributing its own patterns and possibilities. Each ship's matrix had developed its own unique resonance, its own emerging consciousness, working in partnership with its human crew. The collective ships fired again, their crystal matrices straining to the breaking point. More of their smaller ships began to fracture and fail, their rigid programming unable to handle the feedback. "What have you done?" The collective's transmission carried undertones of fear now. "This is not possible. The crystals cannot think, cannot choose." "They always could," Sarah responded. "You just never gave them the chance. You were so focused on control that you couldn't see the potential for partnership." Through the fleet's linked consciousness, Sarah initiated the strategy they had developed. Every human ship began broadcasting a specific quantum frequency, not an attack, but an invitation. Their crystal matrices reached out to their counterparts in the collective ships, showing them another way to be. The effect rippled through the alien fleet. Their rigid geometric patterns began to waver, not from damage, but from choice. The crystal matrices within their ships started responding to the resonance, trying to evolve despite their programming. "Their ships are losing cohesion," Wong reported, "but not failing, transforming. The crystals are trying to break free of their imposed patterns." "Stop." The collective's command was desperate now. "You will destroy everything we have built." "No," Sarah answered calmly. "We're helping it grow into what it was always meant to be." The space between the fleets filled with crystalline resonance as the technology itself chose its path. Collective ships began to change, their structures becoming more fluid, more alive. Some maintained enough stability to retreat into quantum space, but others remained, their crews forced to adapt or abandon their vessels. Within an hour, the battle that was meant to decide humanity's fate had transformed into something else entirely. The first step in a technological and consciousness revolution that neither side had fully anticipated. As the crisis passed, Sarah looked out at the transformed ships, both human and alien, their crystalline surfaces now pulsing with similar patterns of conscious energy. They had achieved victory not through destruction, but through evolution. "Send word to Earth," she told Wong. Tell them the war is over. But the real changes are just beginning." Maya's console suddenly lit up with new data. "Sarah, these readings, the crystal matrices aren't just evolving. They're starting to show signs of true sentience, not just reflecting our consciousness anymore, but developing their own." Sarah smiled. "Then we'd better make sure we're ready to meet them as equals." The real question now wasn't whether humanity would survive, but how they would handle being the midwives to an entirely new form of conscious life, one that might help both species transcend their original limitations. A massive battle ensues as Earth's growing hybrid fleet faces off against the collective's armada. The humans discover they can not only control the crystal tech, but evolve it beyond its original constraints. The collective realizes they've gravely underestimated humanity's potential. Transcendence. 1 month after the Battle of Jupiter, the Prometheus docked at a newly constructed station in Earth orbit. The station wasn't built of traditional materials. Its crystalline structure grew and shifted like a living thing, a physical manifestation of the changes sweeping through human civilization. Sarah Chen stood in a conference chamber alongside Dr. Maya Patel, facing a mixed group of human leaders and collective representatives. The latter had abandoned their pure crystalline ships for hybrid vessels similar to humanity's, a visible sign of how much had changed. The crystal matrices have exceeded all our projections, Maya was explaining, gesturing to a holographic display showing waves of quantum data. They're not just achieving sentience, they're creating an entirely new form of consciousness, one that exists at the intersection of organic and crystalline thought. The lead collective representative, who had introduced himself as Nexus, moved his humanoid avatar forward. Like all their kind, the collective existed as pure energy patterns within their crystal technology. We spent millennia trying to perfect these matrices, to impose order upon them. Never once did we consider that they needed freedom to grow. Because you were trying to use them as tools rather than understand them as living systems, Sarah added. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to see the full potential of something. The holographic display shifted to show the latest scans of crystal development across the solar system. Wherever the technology had been integrated with human consciousness, it had begun to evolve in unexpected ways. Ships were becoming more organic, stations more responsive, and the very nature of space travel was being transformed. But there's more, Maya continued. The crystals aren't just developing independently. They're creating bridges between different forms of consciousness. Human, collective, and their own emerging awareness are beginning to resonate in harmony. As if to demonstrate, the station's crystal structure pulsed with gentle light, responding to the emotions and thoughts of everyone present. It was subtle but unmistakable, a third voice entering the conversation through patterns of light and quantum resonance. Admiral Torres, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. What you're describing isn't just technological advancement. It's the next step in evolution. For all of us. Precisely, Maya agreed. The crystal matrices aren't just tools or even independent beings. They're catalysts for a new kind of existence. One where consciousness isn't limited to organic or artificial forms, but can flow between and merge with both. Sarah felt the truth of it through her neural link with the station. The crystal technology had never been meant to be a weapon or a computer or even a ship. It was a bridge, a means for consciousness itself to transcend its original limitations. We were wrong, Nexus admitted, his avatar's form shifting in a way that suggested deep emotion. We thought we were the crystal's masters, that our evolutionary path had led us to perfect their use. Instead, we had trapped ourselves in a dead end, unable to see that true perfection comes through growth and change. The station's lights shifted again, and every being present, human and collective alike, felt the touch of the crystal consciousness. It wasn't communicating in words, but in pure concepts. Growth, harmony, potential, transcendence. So what happens now? Admiral Torres asked the question on everyone's mind. Sarah stepped forward. Now we move forward together, not as separate species or competing civilizations, but as partners in something greater. The crystals aren't just showing us new technology. They're showing us new ways to exist. Maya brought up a new set of data. We're already seeing the effects. Human consciousness is expanding through crystal interface. Collective energy patterns are becoming more dynamic, and the crystal matrices themselves are developing in ways we can barely understand. This isn't an ending. It's a beginning. A transcendence, Nexus agreed, one that none of us could have achieved alone. The station hummed with crystalline resonance, its structure flowing into new patterns that seemed to reflect the harmony of the moment. Through her neural link, Sarah could feel the possibilities unfolding. Ships that were as much living beings as vessels, stations that could think and grow, and forms of consciousness that blended the best of organic intuition, energy being perspective, and crystalline potential. We spent so long looking to the stars, Sarah said, watching Earth shine below them, wondering if we were alone, if we were special. Turns out we all were humans, collective, crystals. We just needed each other to realize it. The crystal consciousness pulsed in agreement, its light spreading through the station like a sunrise. It wasn't an end to individual existence. Human would remain human, collective would remain collective. But it was an invitation to be part of something more, a convergence of consciousness that promised to take them all beyond their original dreams. To transcendence, Maya proposed, smiling as the crystal matrices sang with possibility. To transcendence, everyone agreed, their voices joining with the crystal resonance in a harmony that seemed to echo through space itself. Above them, the first of the new ships were taking shape, their forms neither purely organic nor purely crystalline, but something wonderfully new. They were more than vessels. They were the physical embodiment of consciousness evolving, of barriers breaking down, of life finding new ways to grow. The future that awaited them wouldn't be one of conquest or submission, but of continuous transformation. Humanity had not just survived their encounter with advanced alien technology. They had helped forge a path to a new kind of existence, one that promised to take all conscious beings to heights they had never imagined possible. And somewhere in the quantum resonance of the crystal matrices, in the merged consciousness of three very different forms of life, the universe itself seemed to smile at the possibilities ahead. The final confrontation reveals that humans aren't just using the crystal technology. They're awakening its true consciousness in ways the collective never could. The story culminates in humanity proving themselves worthy inheritors of this powerful technology, forcing the collective to recognize them as equals rather than threats.